Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Dr. Isaiah Hankel. Dr. Isaiah Hankel has written the book, The Black Hole Focus. He is the founder and CEO of The Cheeky Scientist, a career training company that specializes in helping PhDs transition into corporate careers. He is also the director of Hankel Leadership. He has his doctorate in anatomy and cell biology and is an expert on mental focus, behavioral psychology, and career development. His work has been featured in The Guardian, Fast Company, and Entrepreneur magazine. Isaiah's latest book is The Science of Intelligent Achievement, and that is what we're here to talk about today. I'm super excited about this book. I got to have a preview, and it is off the hook, amazing. It's going to help you so much with your life and dealing with what negative and manipulating people. And if you haven't ever had to deal with that, then I would be shocked. So I'm very, very excited to welcome Dr. Isaiah to the show.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talking.
Yay. Well, I was just reading the book, and the very first thing I have to say, I'm going to just dive right in here.
Let's do it.
That kind of surprised me wholly and took me aback was that you had a wake-up call, I guess, in your life with cancer. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how it changed your life?
Yeah, I think, it's funny how in life you have to sometimes be woken up, and it can be, for some people, it's a huge relationship change. Maybe it's a divorce or a falling out with a friend. Other people, it's a medical crisis. And for me, it was a medical issue that came up unexpectedly, like you said. And when those things happen, it can force you to quickly reevaluate your life and where you're actually headed, right? A lot of the, like I talk about in the book, a lot of the veils that we put up in our life come down very quickly when things get shaky. And so in the book, we talk about a distinction between fake success and intelligent achievement. Fake success, it's built on a very flimsy foundation. For me, it was kind of an idealized version of who I wanted to become, working in different corporations and having superficial relationships, etc. When I got this diagnosis, all of that fell away pretty quickly, and you find out, who's actually there for you, what actually matters in your life. You instantly see the disparity between that fake success and really the achievement that you were hoping to have, and you realize how much you have been, at least for me, how much I had been fooling myself that one was the other. And so it was, it sounds like a cliche thing, but it was definitely one of the best things that ever happened to me because it gave me that clarity.
Yeah, and I found it interesting that you talked about fake success. How can we tell the difference between real success and fake success?
Yeah, so fake success, it's built on a shaky foundation, which means if your life gets rocked a little bit, it's going to fall away. The question is, how do you know if it's fake success before life gets rocky? And that's the hard part. And that's where you have to really start to look at things differently and have some different metrics for success. Right? So for example, keeping up with your friend or keeping up with somebody else's goals, that's fake success, right? Really being able to step away and evaluate whether or not you're chasing the things that matter to you deeply, that are aligned with your actual priorities, who you are at your core, and who you really want to be, or if they're just aligned with somebody else's expectations for you, for example. That's a great way to do it. The book talks about a lot of different studies, and one of the studies I love to quote often is that there was a large-scale study with two groups of people. One group was asked to sit down and write down their goals, their personal goals by themselves. They wrote down their goals. Another group was asked to write down their goals after reading somebody else's goals. And the people who read somebody else's goals first were more than half as likely to write down goals that they had read, the same goals they had read that somebody else had. And we know this, right? We hear about our friends talking about something that they really want, and all of a sudden we're like, I think I want that too, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's really what fake success is. It's not aligned with who you are. It's not aligned with your true identity.
Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting how when you're around somebody and they're going for their goals, you sometimes start going for the same thing, and it almost influences you. So you really do
Absolutely.
have to be aware of what your own goals are. I really loved that part of the book. I really identified with that, and I with you, I know you were going for all these major goals, like you're starting businesses, you're having like your mastery workshop in New York City, which I got to go be a part of, and writing books. What did you change?
Yeah,
What did
great.
you change?
I think we're always, if you're doing it right, you're always in search for your more authentic self. So in some cases, it was more of a pivot, right? Or maybe it was more of a pivot in terms of your intention or why you're doing things. Right? I think before I was doing things for the wrong reason. I think a lot of us do things for the wrong reasons. And when you do that, you're going to hit roadblocks and you're not going to get as far. And if you start doing things for the right reasons, things again that are aligned with actually who you are, you're going to be able to move much further. So I think for a long time, even in stuff that I was doing when I published my first book and I was taking, different contracts, I was taking it, I was just looking at the bottom line, right? Is this going to, bring in XYZ money? Is this going to, make me look good in XYZ way? And now I look at it in more of a long-term mindset, being like, is this going to help me be the kind of person I've always wanted to be? Is this going to, if this was the last thing that I did on earth, would this change other people's lives in the long term? Would it leave a legacy through them? Would it leave a good legacy for me? So changing your perspective in that way, asking yourself some better questions, right? Like, is this going to, how can this benefit me right now? Changing that question to, how is this going to benefit the people that I'm working with, the people that are involved for the long term?
Yeah, and I know you ended up getting married and having a baby. Like that was like a major change. And I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I know you just kind of find out what really matters in your life when you go through a traumatic experience like that. And it can be life-changing, and so many good things come out of it, like this book, for instance. And I want to dive into how you talk a lot about mental energy being our most valuable asset. And how do we fight for, protect, and surround ourselves with mental energy?
Yeah, the first key is being able to step away and actually protect your mental energy. And I would say even before that, it's figuring out, that mental energy is your most valuable resource. It's very easy to fool ourselves into thinking that, time is our most valuable resource. If I just had more hours in the day, I could get more things done. And that's what's really holding me back, is I don't have enough hours in the day. But everybody has the same hours, and time is really not your most valuable asset. Because if you've ever watched a rerun of your favorite TV show or wasted time watching YouTube videos online, watch the same movie twice, you know that time's not your most valuable asset. People say, what do they say next? They say time and money, right? If I just had more money, I could, have other people do all this work for me, and I could, I'd be able to get ahead in life. Money is really what's holding me back. But it's not money, because we waste money on things we want versus what we need all the time. If you own a watch and an iPhone, right? You know what I'm talking about, because why would you need a watch anymore with everybody has a time on their phone, right? So we've all wasted money, whatever it is, we've all wasted money. So it's not money. And the final one, the one that's kind of hot right now, is your network, right? Your network is your net worth. It's all about your relationships, and that's really what's holding you back. And while your network is important, and getting, surrounding yourself with energizers, a better network is important, it's not the limiting factor. Because we've all felt like, oh, I wish I could just give more to relationships, right? And for me, this was the same with me for a long time. I wish I could just give more to relationships. I wish I could stay focused and committed on a relationship. It's all about relationships, but it's not, because you are the limiting factor in your relationships. Again, I'm guessing everyone that's listening here, has wanted to help more, wanted to do more, wanted to network more, but they felt that they were tramped down by too many obligations. They didn't have enough energy, whatever. They were spread too thin. So what's your most limiting asset? It's your mental energy. Your energy levels are what's going to dictate whether or not you make that breakthrough. I heard it put really, really well by, I believe it was David Asprey, the founder of Bulletproof Coffee. He said,
I love that.
You shouldn't be asking yourself how you can get more hours in the day so you can get more done. You should be asking yourself, how can I have so much energy that I can get done in a minute, but it takes somebody else an hour to do? And your mental energy is so powerful, but in today's world, especially, it's under attack, right? It's under attack by people wanting to suck you into drama that doesn't matter, gossip, online stuff, marketeers, whatever it is. And until you can step away, protect your mental energy, that's the first step. Once you can do that, then you can start harnessing it and leveraging it towards your actual goals.
So protecting our mental energy, it's pretty important who you surround yourself with then, right?
Absolutely.
And let's say we're at work and we're around people that constantly are complaining, and they're all about drama and they're just negative. What can we do to protect our energy around those people?
That's a question I get a lot, right? Well, that and the question of, well, what about my family members, or I have kids or whatever else? Like, okay, in some cases, you are going to have to do the hard work of sitting somebody down and having an authentic conversation with them and trying to find a way to work ahead. If you're a parent, obviously you're going to have to sit down and talk to your kids and work them through something, right? You're going to have to be a mentor. But if there might be certain family members that you have to care about from a distance. There might be colleagues that you have to ignore or go eat your lunch somewhere else. Another great study that's in the book and that I've been talking a lot about recently, again, two groups of people. One group had to engage with a negative person for 4 minutes, like a negative person whining, complaining, just having negative energy, negative conversation, gossip, etc. for 4 minutes. Then they took a performance exam. The other group of people, they were instructed just to ignore the negative person, right? So no matter what the negative person said, what gossip they brought up, the complaining, etc., they just ignored them. Didn't talk to them. Might have nodded along. That was it. Then they took the performance test. What the study found is that the people who ignored the negative person, they were still around it, but they ignored it, they performed significantly higher on the performance test. So this means a couple of things. One, it means that engaging with a negative person is going to reduce your performance significantly. Okay, and there's actually a mechanism for this. They found that if you listen to complaining or negativity for just 30 seconds, you'll start to peel away neurons in your hippocampus, and that's the part of your brain responsible for problem solving. So again, negativity will literally kill brain cells, very important brain cells. But just by ignoring the negativity, you can be around it, but just by ignoring it, by letting it bounce off you, not engaging with it, you can protect those brain cells and you can perform at a higher level.
So let's just say that our spouse is the one that's negative, and maybe, I don't know, you have goals or ideas and dreams, and they're like telling you all the reasons why you can't do this, or maybe they want to keep you in a box because it makes them feel safe. I don't know, or in control.
Sure.
How do you deal with that when it's your spouse? How do you set better boundaries and stop being a victim?
Well, the first thing to do is I call it a two-step gut check, and it just means, number one, and this could be anybody, it could be your spouse, doesn't matter who it is. Maybe they were just having a bad day, right? So check and say, okay, maybe it was a bad day, maybe they were in a bad emotional state, maybe something was going on with them. Let it go. Be the bigger person, let it go. That's step one. If it continues, though, if this behavior happens over and over and over again, you need to sit down with them and have an authentic conversation. Now, the third part of the book, it's called pragmatic growth. And what that means is that it's practical, right? The word pragmatic means very practical. It means the ability to get in the trenches and do the hard work. But it also has a strong component of personal responsibility. And that's what you need to do with the second step. When you sit down to have an authentic conversation, don't do what most people do and just say, hey, you're doing this wrong. We hold up a mirror to other people and try to show them everything they're doing wrong. We say, hey, you're a narcissist, right? I looked into the studies. We label people, whatever it is. Don't do that. Instead, take full responsibility yourself. Take complete ownership. And that's actually the second part of the book. It's called creative ownership. Take ownership over the situation. Say, look, I'm interpreting it this way. It's my fault because this influences me. I'm sensitive to this in this way, whatever it is. I want to ask for your help in making this easier, or this interaction or this issue or whatever it is. Is there a way that we can work together so that I don't feel this way, or it doesn't affect me this way, and so that we can move forward? Take full responsibility, focus on solutions. That's the next step. If that doesn't help, and again somebody just keeps dragging you down, whether it's your spouse or whatever, some more difficult decisions might need to be made. There's a chapter in the book called "Why You Need to Go on a Relationship Fast," and in many cases, even in your most serious relationships, actually stepping away for a little bit, right? Even if it's for a day or a couple of days or a few hours, it can help you gain perspective. We've all experienced this, but very few of us do it. We hear about fasting when it comes to health in the body, right? This is
absolutely. Yeah.
You can do the same kind of fasting when it comes to your relationships, right? Intermittent fasting, right? The goal is not solitary confinement, just like food fasting nowadays is not about not eating for 2 weeks. Instead, it might be go on an intermittent fast, right? Step away from a certain group of people or a certain person for a few days, because that will give you, that emotional distance will give you clarity. And so I think if you can schedule these kind of relationship fasts into your life, you'll have a lot more clarity. It'll help you not only protect your mental focus, but it'll help you leverage it correctly to figuring out solutions on how you can move forward. And it'll also help you see which people should be in your life and which actually shouldn't be in your life.
Well, I can certainly relate to fasting because I have just done a beta test for my new online program, and it's from the Sisterhood of Sweat. It's called the Sweat Online Challenge. And we did intermittent fasting, we did detoxing, we did 2-day fasts. So I completely get the whole principle of fasting. So let's say it's a close family member and you live with them. Would you say then you just kind of, you don't say, I'm fasting, I'm separating myself from you. Sure. you say inwardly, I'm just going to kind of back away a bit and not interact with them as much? Or
well, communication is key. It's not like you just walk out the door and take off. And it's going to be different for everybody. Every relationship has its own unique dynamic. You have to figure out what's right for you. But you want to communicate what's going on. And again, you want to take responsibility. If you say, look, you're being this way, I'm taking off. Doesn't matter if it's a friendship, someone you live with, whatever it is, it's going to be negative. And you're being weak. You're taking the weak-minded way out. You're blaming somebody else. You're labeling them. And then you're just taking off. That's not going to solve anything.
Right.
You say, look, I have some things I have to work through. I need to have a little bit of unplugged time by myself to figure out what I really want, right? And some people, this might make other people uncomfortable, right? Because we get into these dynamics and you hear somebody else saying they're going to take some time to figure stuff out. They need to be okay with letting you take some time on your own, and you need to be okay with letting them take some time on their own. Again, no matter who it is. So explain what you're doing, talk about it up front. Set those boundaries, talk about how long it's going to be. I'm going to take a full day to do this. Make plans if you need to, right? Don't just leave in the middle of the night. Like, you need to communicate ahead of time before this stuff overflows in a more negative way. And of course, that ownership, that personal responsibility is a big piece to making it successful.
And then, at work, let's say you're at work and you have a boss or a coworker, but you have to do projects with them.
Sure.
So you've got to interact, and you can't really, at the time being, you need the money, you can't quit your job. So what are some strategies there?
The same strategies. I mean, 99% of this is solved if people would just have the guts to take personal responsibility for this stuff. But in most cases, you don't. You get home and you're like, oh, this coworker, I can't stand them, or they're doing this, or they're out to get me, they're whatever it is. Everybody has that one coworker, right? They're just like, I can't stand them.
Drives them crazy.
But you've never sat down one-on-one with that coworker and tried to work it out. You never have. You've never even gotten a mediator.
Yeah, because that takes guts.
Because that takes guts and courage, and you're scared. I mean, so have some guts. Be mentally tough. Say, look, I find it, it's difficult to work together in this way because of me. I'm doing this. This is how I'm feeling. Couldn't we sit down and have a one-on-one conversation about it and see how we might be able to work better together? If they're uncomfortable with that, see if they can bring in a mediator, right? It just comes down to, look, what's your intention? Do you really want to solve the problem, or do you just want to have something to complain about and somebody to blame? Most people just want somebody to blame. If you want to fix it, you can't fix it. Just takes one authentic conversation where you take personal responsibility.
What are some boundaries that we could set that help steer us away from the negative and the manipulating people? Like, maybe we don't want to completely, separate ourselves, but we want to kind of set some boundaries so they're not just taking our time, our energy.
Sure. Well, the book talks about two things. One, saying no is your default. And some people have a hard time saying no. They get asked, hey, they get asked general questions like, hey, in about a month, I might need some help with XYZ, or there's an event in about a month or whatever. I'd love you to come. We're like, oh yeah, sure. I'll be there. Happy to support. And then the time comes and we're swamped and we're like, you can't possibly do it. And we feel this guilt and it drains our energy because we feel guilt of having to say no. And maybe we go and we hate being there and it would have been better if we don't go. Whatever it is, you can fix all that just by setting no as your default. Just say, no, I can't make it. I'll let you know if something changes. That's it, to everything that comes your way. No, I can't do this, even at work. And people think I can't say no at work. Sure you can. If your manager asks you to do something or your boss does, say no, or say, I don't know if I can meet that deadline. Could we set it for this week instead? If you do that, if anything, your boss will probably like you better because you are approaching them as someone who's trying to work together and solve and set realistic expectations. A colleague might say, hey, can you help me do this? No, I can't. I have to do X, Y, Z. If it's a superior, just try to set the deadline different, or say, is there a way that we can set this aside for now until I get this done, right? So again, it comes down to communication. Say no first. I would also say, make sure you're setting up time during the day that you have to yourself. That's a big key too. A lot of us feel flustered because we wake up and then boom, we're right at work or checking emails and helping other people push forward their agenda instead of spending time on ourselves. There's a complete section in the book that talks about mapping out your mental energy levels by the hour. Most of us have our peak mental energy levels about 2 hours after waking up. And our peak mental energy levels per day only last for 90 to 120 minutes. Great study that's been reported at Harvard Business Review too. 90 to 120 minutes of near peak mental energy, only about 3 to 5 hours. The problem is that most of us spend those hours at work checking email. Get up a little bit earlier, reserve some of those peak mental energy hours for yourself, your personal goals, your strategies. This will do a large part in helping all your mental energy dissipating or being used for other people's goals.
Well, I found it pretty fascinating how you were talking in the book about surrounding yourself with the right people and how you spot, I guess, the wrong people that you're surrounding yourself with. How do we identify the people that, I know we can hold our own selves back, but identify people in our lives that may be holding us back, or trying to keep us in a certain spot where they feel comfortable? How do we identify them? How do we know, oh, yep, that person is holding me back?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't make that a priority, right? I think it's very easy to start auditing our friendships and saying, okay, this person's a bad person. They've done this. They're a victim. They're out of my life. That's a waste of time. Instead, you need to look at yourself and really just gain distance. I mean, the relationship fast is the key. If you step away for a few days, right? Stop answering all those text messages. Stop, getting tied into lots of obligations and looking to make somebody else happy and having your focus constantly on them, no matter what you're doing. Stop it. You're wasting your entire life.
Wasting your time.
Instead, step away, and very, very quickly, it's going to become clear who is good for you and who is bad for you. Which relationships are reciprocal, which are not. There's another great study in the book that shows it's a large-scale study from MIT that found that 50% of all friendships are fake.
That I was like, what? 50%? That's a huge number.
It is. They're not reciprocal. But I bet, if you dig in, it's not that surprising, right? So what that means is that a lot of your friendships you're giving to, and they're not giving anything back in terms of value, any kind of value. Or they're giving to you, and you're not giving anything back. And you can't see that with any kind of clarity unless you step away and say, oh, I've just been trying to push my agenda here with this friend or whatever it is, add value. They're not into it. We're not really close friends. I can stop that. Or this person's really been trying hard to add value in this way, and I've just been ignoring it. I should engage with them because it could be fun to work with. Or I need to tell them that sorry, I'm just not interested. I don't have time for this right now, but I'll circle back to you, in several months. Whatever it is, you're not going to gain that kind of clarity unless you go in that relationship fast, and unless you really understand how many people are in your life right now, people you just let in passively, that are clogging or sucking up your mental energy. You need to step away and be able to, again, audit those friends, not with the purpose of labeling them, but the purpose of realizing, where you need to be adding your value, because there's only so much value you can add in a day because you only have so much mental energy in a day.
Yeah. And I know I can be guilty of, work, no play, and everything I do, even a vacation, has to be centered around work or some kind of a goal that I have. Recently, somebody was trying to take me out for lunch, and I'm like, oh, I only have so much time. Do we have to go that far? I'm like trying to control where we're going. And she said, okay, well, we can stay in town and go. And so I did go. I had such a good time. It was so fun. I'm like, why do I do this to myself where I'm so focused on work and not so much on play? And I know a lot of us are like that, where we're so focused on our responsibilities and our work. But to build a power network, you have to be able to socialize. Sure. What are ways that we can work on being more social and realizing the importance of it?
Yeah. So the first step is getting rid of all of the people who are, sucking up your energy levels and not giving you anything back. And there are people like that in our lives, because most of us, we're not very deliberate with who we let into our life. Here's the key. The quality people will not come into your life, especially new people from new networks, will not come into your life until you get rid of the low quality ones. This doesn't mean cutting somebody out just because they're not rich, for example. It just means like there's those people that are always dragging you down. They're always subtly cutting you down. They're not really for you, and you know it, and you've probably known it all along. Eliminating those people from your life, that's the first step. And then you can get those higher quality people. You'll free up your mental energy to give more value to those people, because the key to cracking into any network, making new friends, is adding a ton of value and expecting nothing in return. That needs to be your mindset. And for you to have the mental energy, the internal stores, the resources to do that, the creativity to do that, you have to get rid of all the junk in your life, even the junk people who are just draining your mental energy day in and day out. That's the first step. Then you can start adding value to those high quality people, and that's how you're gonna surround yourself with energizers, not energy vampires.
And I got to say, I had such a good time that I literally went home, and the things that I had wanted to do, I got done in half the time. So, I think I see that was a person I should surround myself with.
Exactly.
So I know making friendships and spending time with a power network, like a mastermind, like people that lift you up and build you up to your highest calling, is so important. And in the book, you talk about Einstein. Could you share that story with the listeners?
Yeah, it's a story that's been shared quite a bit. And I think the one that you're talking about with Einstein's network, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Einstein, he was not on a very good career path early on. He struggled in school. He didn't get high enough scores to become a professor, so he started working in a patent office. And during this time, he didn't do anything great. He was just working like similar to what many of us have done. We've gone to a job where, we don't feel like we're having an impact. We're surrounded by people who are just punching the clock. Nothing great. This is Einstein. He lived that life. Then he just decided to develop the Olympia Academy, or Academy of Olympia, something like that. He just decided to create a mastermind with two other people who wanted to talk about science and mathematics and physics, etc. Within just a couple of years of forming this Olympia Academy, he went on to write his famous papers about the theory of relativity, which is pretty phenomenal if you think about it, right? So he was working at a patent office, punching the clock, surrounded by people who were just working a job, not into it, actively decided to make time to surround himself with people who energized him, who talked about the things he was interested in, a little mastermind group. It was only two people. And from those discussions, he created the theory of relativity, and obviously the rest is history with Einstein. And so it doesn't matter who you are, even if you're not an Einstein, right? Who are you spending most of your time with? Who are you surrounded by? Because studies show that, our biology will force you to copy those people. You have mirror neurons in your brain that force you to copy people, same mirror neurons that make you yawn when you see somebody else yawn. We hear about other people's goals. We automatically want those goals. We have a negativity bias that attracts us to negativity, to bad things. So if you have like dramatic people, manipulative people in your life, you're actually more likely to keep them in your life because you get a dopamine hit by engaging with them or by trying to fix them. You have to step away from that. And you have to actively find people who energize you. Just like you said, you meet with somebody and you come away thinking like, wow, I have all these ideas now. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's what you need to find, because that is what's going to change your life.
Yeah. I know we can become addicted to the toxic relationships. And So you're giving some good insight on how to break away from that. I know it's a problem in society getting addicted to toxic
Sure.
relationships. And you talk in the book also about, some of these relationships where maybe they're competitive,
Yeah.
the person, you're talking about going skiing and they're talking about, they got to one up you. They skied the Black Diamond backwards with a blindfold and.
Sure.
And so you've got all this going on, all these different factors. You talk about channeling and the fog technique. Can you share a little bit of that? I don't want to give everything away because this is a great book. You guys got to get it. It's coming out in January.
Yeah. So the channeling technique is talking about, okay, some negativity is good for you. You can actually leverage that to improve yourself. And it's more of that competitive energy. It's not so much negative. You think it's negative, but you need to take responsibility and say, like, this isn't negative. This is just somebody who's super competitive, who's trying to be better. And, they may not be doing it correctly. They may not be cordial or professional, but so what? I mean, at least they're trying to improve. Negative people are trying to bring you down, tramp you down, whatever. If it's somebody who's like undercutting what you do, that's different than somebody saying, well, I did this, or really pushing their life forward. That you should use as inspiration or competition to sharpen you. We all hear, iron sharpens iron. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You don't want to be the strongest person in the room. You want to be in one sense, you want to be the weakest and the dumbest, right? Because then you're going to learn everything, and you're going to raise up to their level.
Oh, that's a good point.
Push down to other people's levels.
Now, so you're channeling that. So if somebody is competing with you, you can just serve to make you better, right?
Right, because most of us don't do anything unless there's either A, a sense of urgency, or B, a sense of competition, right? Somebody else out there, because it gives us that instant kind of feedback with comparing ourselves. You have to be the master of that, right? Comparing yourself constantly to others or even to your past self or the future self you want can be damaging if you let it be, but can also be inspiring, right? It's great to find someone else who's near you, who's a little bit above you, who you can reach and really kind of dig in and push yourself, right? Not by pulling them down, but by pushing yourself to lift yourself up.
Right. And I know you were talking also about like people that maybe undermine you.
Yeah.
They're not really doing anything that you could ever call them out on.
Sure.
They're like undermining you behind your back, or they're talking about you, or they're doing something to kind of, how do you deal with that in the workplace?
Same thing. You need to have, the first step is having that 2-step gut check, right? That letting it slide and then sitting down and having an authentic conversation where you take personal responsibility. And it can just start by saying, like, this is something that I'm overly sensitive to. I come up with an idea or solution and people kind of cut it down, and I know it's just a joke, but it really kind of diffuses my energy. Talk about it first, okay? If they continue doing it, then they know what they're doing, you know what they're doing, right? If they try to use it against you, being like, oh, he's just sensitive or whatever, you don't need to be around that. You can just ignore them. Yeah. And by not be around it, I mean, like, you don't have to let it influence your mental energy. Don't let it like have an outpost in your head, as they say. Remember that study, all you have to do is ignore that. It's not going to affect your brain if you're able to ignore it. You need to become a professional ignorer of that of those kind of subtle put downs.
Yeah, I think that's a good tactic. And just kind of, to me, once you find out that person is constantly undermining you after you've had the conversation and you've done your duty, pretty much, I think, separate yourself from that as much as possible. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I mean, when a lot of people decide to walk away from somebody, they make a huge dramatic event out of it. They say, I'm leaving because of this, or we can't be friends because of this. Here's all the things you're doing wrong. Nobody plays a villain in their own lives. So stop trying to show them that they're the villain. Just step away.
Oh, yeah. And that is really good advice. I've listened to some of your YouTube videos where you talk about it's a waste of your energy to try to prove somebody's bad or wrong or whatever, because they're not going to want to believe that about themselves. So that is probably not the right way to go about it.
Yeah, it's a complete waste of time. Any time you spend trying to show somebody else they're wrong is completely wasted. And a lot of us do this. We're like, I'm going to show them. They're going to see that they're wrong. They're going to say that I'm right. I'm going to come up with this perfect rational argument. It doesn't matter how rational or logical you are. Nobody's going to be like, you're right. I'm such a villain, whatever. No. And if they ever did come to that point, it's going to be after you created a void and stepped away for a while and allowed them to gain some emotional clarity.
And that's a huge way to protect your energy, is knowing what is a waste of time.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I've definitely been practicing that. I've definitely learned from just reading the book and listening to you, and it works. It's a great tool. I found it interesting in the book where you have a chapter, why your life is your fault. I love that whole idea. Can you explain to the listeners, what does that mean?
Yeah, this is something a lot of people struggle with because it sounds super harsh, but the world is a harsh place. And no matter what happens to you, whether it happened to you when you were a kid or when you're older, things are going to happen that are unfair, very negative things. And those things are not your fault. What is your fault is how you respond to it. That's the key. And until you take that kind of extreme ownership over your life and over the path ahead, you're going to be held back by the things that happen to you. You're going to be held back by in some cases, very evil things that people might have done to you. So it's not about victim shaming. It's about shaming the victim mentality that's going to hold you back. That's the difference. You cannot let yourself be a victim, because your response, the way that you move ahead, that's in your hands. That's what you need to take ownership of. If you don't take ownership of that, then it's still controlled by that person that hurt you or by whatever happened in the past. So that's really the message behind.
Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Having been a victim of domestic violence once upon a time, it's not my fault that happened, but my life is my fault. Basically, remove yourself from this situation. Take responsibility that this is my life, and I'm not allowing that in my life. So that's how I kind of related to that, was your life is your decision. Like, something bad may happen to you, but what you do about it is your fault. It's your decision. It's, on you. So take responsibility. That's how you stop being a victim. You take responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. Personal responsibility, ownership. It's a big part of the book, and it should be a big part of anybody's life who wants to move past the bad things that have happened to them.
Yeah. There's just so much good in this book, and it was so well researched. I love the science. I am a science geek myself, so I really enjoy how you really did your homework, and there's science in the book. It's well researched. It's well thought out. You guys have to check this out and get a copy. It's a great book. It's a good read, and a tool which you can go back over and over to help you with your day-to-day life. Where can they get the book?
Where can you? So right now you can pre-order it on Amazon. You just search The Science of Intelligent Achievement, and I can send you a link where anyone listening can download 2 free chapters. So you can put that in your show notes or on your page.
Okay, awesome.
There's a link that just came out, so a nice little insert. And it'll be out internationally December 29th, and then in the US January 3rd.
What was your favorite part of writing the book? What was your biggest takeaway?
The book it's about twice as long as my last book, and so it was a lot of work piecing it together. And what I really enjoy is there's always this moment where things are coming together, but then there's that one theme. You figure out what that thread is that's going to tie the entire book together. And here, obviously, it was the idea of intelligent achievement and really kind of leveraging the science here, some of the new stuff, especially in terms of like behavioral psychology and focus, and tying that thread throughout the book in a way that was actually readable by somebody, that's not a scientist, and making it applicable to anyone, no matter what their background is. So that was exciting for me when you actually see, okay, now I see how this can help people.
Yeah. That's what I liked about it, was just seeing the science and how it truly related to what was actually going on and what you're actually seeing happen, but you didn't understand why it was happening. So I really enjoyed that part of the book. What are 3 simple truths you could leave with the listeners today?
I would just say the 3 truths that are in the book. 1, protect your mental focus because it's your most valuable asset. to take creative ownership over your life. Stop being dependent on just one person for your professional success, just one person for your happiness. And then 3, start exercising pragmatic growth. A lot of us nowadays, we have kind of this pie in the sky. We hear that anything's possible. And so we just talk about all the great things that are possible, but very few of us will get in the trenches and take practical action, take pragmatic action. So be willing to get in the trenches, take that pragmatic action, respond to feedback, and move forward with your life.
Well, I've so enjoyed having you on the show today.
Thank you.
And I hope all the listeners really dive into this episode, get the book, and where can they find you on social media?
My first and last name, which sounds easy, except for my name spelling. My spelling's a little hard, but it's IsaiahHankel.com would be the easiest way. So.
And live like a lion, guys. That's like the whole premise with Isaiah. You have to go to his website, check it out. He has another book called The Black Hole Focus, which is amazing. And all his quotes, you guys got to check him out. I mean, I can't say enough about Isaiah. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. And thanks everybody for listening to the Sisterhood of Sweat.